I lied to you, internet. The next bit is actually putting the front output shaft or front output housing onto the transfer case. So there's lots of ways of trying to seal a Land Rover. Lots of them don't work. I've had the best luck with this, which is very much the junkyard digs method, which is plastering. Not plastering. Putting a thin layer of sealant over your gaskets in. Just try and be as messy as possible, really. You don't want too much. I mean, these aren't. It's not an internal surface, really. But what else do I find works? Stag well seal, that works pretty well in a similar manner. Trying to think what else. Dry doesn't work at all. I've had no luck with oiling gaskets. They all leak eventually. I just find of all of the different ways of doing this one seems to work. If it's squidging out on the outside, it's going to squidge out on the inside. And one, it's just a waste. If it's squidging out, it's not doing anything, is it? But if you're going to do that and it's an internal surface, like an engine, that is all going to squidge into what is going in. So inside an engine, you're going to squidge it into all your oilways, and then this stuff, by design, obviously isn't broken down by oil. Then that's going to get into your strainers, filters. Well, hopefully it gets into your strainers and filters. If it doesn't, it goes into your oilways, blocks the oilways, and then you're going to have a bad time. A very bad time. Right. All I want to do is what's going to slide into each other. We're going to slide into there. Wow, lovely. We are going to fall over. We're going to slide into there. Yes, I know. I haven't put any more gloves on, have I? That's clever. Block of wood is back. I think the easiest way of doing this is going to be at this sort of angle. And we're just going to a little bit on there. I just love putting it in the bearings. A little bit on there, a little bit on there, and just hope, really. So we haven't had this apart. It works. That was a nut. That's a worry. Ooh, that was a good noise. Let's hear it again. Maybe one more time. On with the video. There we go, that's engaged. There we are. Front output shaft on. Yes, I will clean it before it all goes back together. That looks rubbish, doesn't it? Oh. So that is as far as you can go with the transfer box without putting it on the gearbox. And therein lies the choice of, do we attempt to put the gearbox back in the car first, in that it's lighter, it's easier to handle, and it's going to be easier to line up the first motion shaft into the back of the engine and the clutch. Then we assemble the transfer box onto it. But that's going to have the issue of we're going to have to support the gearbox while we're doing that. Or do we, I'll put some crap all over my face, haven't I? Have a look. Or do we assemble it all normally on there, lower the car down and push it back in? I think we'll do reversal of removal. It worked once, so it'll work again. Right, internet. I'm very disappointed in you. You watched me do that. Didn't say anything, knowing I hadn't put the selector shaft in. The selector fork in for high-low. I mean, seriously. Anyway, let me show you, because the manual doesn't make it obvious. You'll remember our friend, the intermediate gear. All these things, there you go. That little shaft here, which locates on an indent on the high-low selector. Yeah, you need to hold that inside the transfer box whilst you push this on. And it's as easy as that as it sounds. Yeah. No, it's not. It's a pain in the arse. Right. So now that is well and truly on. So we can see we have drive through. Obviously, without the intermediate gears, I'm not going to see a lot. It's not going to change, but you can see that is attaching. Can you see? Oh, it's very dark. Yeah, it's very dark, but I can see that either going onto the high or low gear. Right, so we're going to bolt it up again. We'll pop the detent in. So we'll make it feel like we're being professional, shall we? Oh yeah, look at that. So that's the detent. As a little reminder, the detent is what gives you the gear location. Oh, sorry, fingers and thumbs. So, with that in and all the way down, you can see, look at what I was all set up to, you know. And now, oh, there we go. That is low, I think. Backwards is low. Neutral, well, you heard it there. It's very difficult without the lever. But low, that's what basically gives you a location for low, neutral, and high. Seriously, when you're watching, it wouldn't take much, would it, to say, "Oi, idiot, read the manual." Anyway, put it all back together, and then finally, it's ready. Right, this is going to be a bugger to film. So we're installing the intermediate shaft. We've already popped the shaft in, but this is what we've got, times 2. So that's our old intermediate gear. That's our new one. Interestingly, made in Italy. Then we have the 2 intermediate gear bearings. Again, they're about 8 years old, so they're fine. And then we have 2 thrust washers. This one, the other one's already in the gearbox. This washer on the back of it is another one of the oddities with this kit, because it's an older, it's a Suffix B box, and by the fact that they describe it on the website as requiring these to fit a Series 3, I'm going to say that's a Series 2 transfer box. So what we've got to do, see the little locking tab there, is bend that back further so that will locate into the housing and stop the thrust washer spinning. So the gears should be sitting on the face of the thrust washer. Then there's the intermediate shaft. So what we've got to do, which is going to be impossible to film, so I'm going to have to show you the end result, is, let's see if I can put you inside. Not quite. So you can see we've stuck the washer and the new thrust washer, the new washer and the old thrust washer into the housing with grease. We will do the same with the other one on that side. Then we need to hold the gear set in there with the bearings inside it and the shaft outside of it, not knocking these off, which is why you stick them in with grease, and then push the shaft through. It's pretty obvious why I can't film that. Right, be right back. I tell you what, I am glad I was not filming that. The expletives were real. Main reason being, those two little washers. What a nightmare. So that's now in, lining up that shaft with basically 4 free-floating washers and that with the 2 bearings inside it is a right pain. Quick tip, if you're doing this, so this is how the intermediate shaft is engaged. Basically there's a cutout in the end of it there, and that slots in and stops it coming undone. Well, I say coming undone, it's not really done up, is it? It stops it walking itself out. Oh, come on. So to make it a lot easier, drop it all on the floor. Make it a lot easier, basically take that stud out, because then you can put the locking tab in afterwards. You haven't got to remember to try and put it in at the same time and juggle something else. I can't do that one-handed. Okay, so once that's back in, we can then put our final gear on the actual gearbox output gear, which will go on that shaft. Oh, look, you can see the edge of the intermediate shaft. Hello! Put that in, so this on, put a bit of Loctite in the dowel in the stud hole, just to hold it still. Then I'll bring you back for the coup de grace, and then we can put the sump on. God, we've got to try and fit it. Oh well, let's do it. I consistently amaze myself at how hard this is to make look good. Anyway. Look. Look. Oh, I'm just going to turn this one. Oh. Just look at all the gearings. We have so many gearings. That's not torqued up because I need someone to hold it for me, because I can't quite reach it on my own. So we are going to fit our nice alloy sump. That's gooped up. Now, Ashcroft do these with a nice stud arrangement. I've just noticed something. Can you read that? 19th the 9th, 79? Is that? Suffix D. Now you'd have to say that looks like, so that's raised, so that is actually in the casting. How cool is that? Huh. Now attached to a much older one. So we're going to attach that. Now, luckily, I have these fantastic fixing kits from Thomas Smith. Otherwise, I wouldn't have the right hardware for this. Because Ashcroft sell them, or have sent this anyway, studded rather than bolted, which is a much better idea. No! It doesn't make it easy, but the studs are a much better idea going into an aluminium casing, because unless you go utterly stupid with how tight you've done something up, you aren't going to pull the threads out. It's always better in an aluminium case to be on studs, I think, than a bolt. Now the last thing we need to do on this, before my other half arrives and I can borrow her strength, is this. Now I think I may have never actually fitted that, which is the reverse gear something or other. Reverse gear stop bolt. So once I've torqued those up, we've got to pop this little cover off here. I need to put a little cap in it as well. Pop the little cover off, and then we can put it into reverse and adjust this bolt until we've got a certain distance. So, yeah. Just realised gearbox is suffix B. Oh, one other thing, very, very important, and I've remembered it just the right time where you can't see it. There is an end float to check on the intermediate shaft. It is between 0.1 and 0.2 of a millimetre, and just test it between the end of the intermediate shaft, so I mean I suppose you could do it either cog and the thrust washer. Yeah, oh, and that's what that plate looks like. Should probably have painted it. I'll put some grease on it. Little extra. So I had this little feeling in the back of my mind that when I changed the seal and gasket on this, that those three bottom threads weren't much good. And they used to be bolts. And sure enough, when I took them out, one of them, anyway, had a nice load of aluminium thread in it. So I thought, we should probably practice what we preach, shouldn't we? So I said earlier, if you have dead aluminium threads, or you've been a bit overzealous and you pulled out your aluminium threads, killing them yourself, turn them into a stud. And that's what we've done. So I don't know what imperial thread these are. Something UNC, I would say, because it's quite a coarse thread. Anyway, they will tap straight out to M8 and give you plenty of meat for an M8 thread. So what I've done is make some studs from an M8 bolt. And so far we've done two. I'm just going to do the last one. Camera arms. Always like a bit of Loctite. Yes, that is full of oil, but I can't stop it being full of oil, so. This is really hard with one hand. Oh, look at that. Now, if you've done this job before, you can smell that oil, can't you? Because it's just the most vile smelling stuff in the world. If you can't, imagine, I don't know, a decaying corpse And if you can't imagine a decaying corpse, imagine decaying roadkill. That's what it smells like. It's disgusting. And it's everywhere currently. On me, in me, on the floor, on the ceiling, I don't know, it's everywhere. And then I'm just making sure that I've wound that in. If anything, that's gone a little bit further. I might have to bring that back out a little bit. Or put a larger one in there. So, yeah, because what I did basically, I threaded them to the back because they're not, as much as that is full of oil, it's full of oil because there's some pouring out of that bearing. They aren't through holes, they have a back, so I just threaded them to the back. I didn't film it because usually whenever I try and thread a hole, it goes terribly, terribly wrong. And it didn't this time, probably because I didn't film it. So, yes. So, right, that's it. So what we do now, so those two nuts are just locked together and that gives us something to turn. Don't turn them with a pair of pliers because you'll knacker the threads, thus rendering the whole exercise completely pointless. Cool, so what we'll do now, undo those nuts, we will clean this rubbish off, and I'll put that cover back on. That's not very interesting, I just wanted to add that in to show that an example, really, of how to easily fix a dead aluminium thread. The long way is to helicoil it. If you want strength, absolutely helicoil it, but to be honest, I think the stud works perfectly well. This gearbox has essentially been around since the Series 1, and very rarely do you see them with, I don't know, the transfer box ripped off the gearbox, or that ripped off that, or the whole thing pulled off, and it's all held in with studs. There's no steel thread inserts into that, which is what a helicoil is. It's you basically tap that hole out to, I don't know, I can't do imperial, to say 2 or 3 sizes larger than the bolt you want to put in it. You'd insert a steel thread into that hole, and then you'd put a bolt into that steel thread, so thus giving you a steel thread in an aluminium casing. But a stud's easier, you don't need silly kits, and it works. So, right, the next thing you'll probably see is clutch, because that's the cover, by the way. So that hole, that ball thing there, stay there. That holds the release, a fork for the release bearing. Release bearing sits on here and goes back and forth and operates your clutch. That is the seal I've changed inside it. You see I've still got to get the gasket off. Which, by the way, gearbox oil, it's disgusting, but rub it all over a paper gasket and it's quite good for removing it. Once left. Which is, again, the reason why lots of silicone is good. But yes, we have our missing part of the puzzle, which was a new release bearing. Okay. We'll see you at clutch.